Hey everyone, this is Kiara from Katie Industry, and I'm here today to empower people with their relationships. We're going to be talking about, did Angie Kent choose her past pain or love in the final episode of The Bachelorette? Now, I normally wouldn't do a video on this, but I've branched out a little today because I watched the final episode as someone who's interested in relationships, and I just really felt like I wanted to have a conversation around what I think has kind of happened in that past episode. So we're going to do a little bit of a recap, and then I'm going to kind of talk about my interpretation of events. So this isn't a hate video. This isn't telling anyone what they should or shouldn't have done. It's just simply what I think happened and why I think Australia was shocked by the outcome. So essentially, for those of you who have watched The Bachelorette, I'm sure you would already know, but we've kind of got the two last men in the group. Carlin, who has had a few rumors fly around him from the group that he's an actor and that he's pretty much just paid to be on the show and he's not really there for the right reasons. And then we've also had Tim, who's kind of like the goofy, happy-go-lucky guy who kind of seems very fully invested in Angie and in their relationship. So when it originally came out about Carlin that he may or may not be an actor, this really triggered Angie. It really upset her, and you really saw a different side to her kind of come out. Then she's usually quite composed and like knows what she's talking about, quite confident. But when she'd found out someone had been lying to her and pretty much using her to get on the show, it really brought up a lot of stuff for her. And you actually saw her crying and like running out to the production staff to have a bit of a chat to them because it was just all too much. And this really signaled a bit of a flag to me. Clearly something has gone on in her past around being lied to and kind of having it all come out at the last moment and her being completely shocked because she is such a genuine person herself. So then this was checked into by Angie, and she kind of did her research and she went and chatted to Carlin and they had a bit of a conversation around it, and he reassured her that it was just nothing. That is, until it came up again when she went to visit Carlin's brother, and Carlin's brother said, oh yeah, he definitely went on the show for his acting career. We all thought this would maybe be a last nail in the coffin and that Carlin would be going home that night, but turns out he didn't. Him and Angie did have quite a heated discussion around this, and you could tell Angie was quite upset. But when push came to shove at the rose ceremony, he continued having a rose. And then, so he got into the grand final, and I'm pretty sure like everyone else, most people were thinking, okay, he probably is going to get kicked now. I'd imagine this would be his time to go. And then there's lovable little Tim, who's been there for Angie the whole time. It's really interesting throughout the season when Angie was quite triggered by the rumors of people using her for their TV careers. The first person she ran to was Tim. So he was the person who kind of was there for her when shit was hitting the fan, and she was quite upset. So the fact that she ended up choosing Carlin in the final hour was quite a shock to a lot of people, including myself. I just wanted to unpack as to why I think that may be. So in the last episode, she even quoted Tim as being her soulmate, which I feel like is not something you usually would say to the loser. You might say that to the winner, but I thought it was quite strange. So I feel like her feelings and maybe her thought processes were on two different pages here, and they weren't quite in sync. And then there was also the rose ceremony before that where she was like, I made the wrong decision, and she kind of really broke down and got quite upset. And interestingly, this was right after she'd chosen Carlin, and I wonder if there's more to that than what we saw on TV. So specifically when it comes to emotions and relationships, I feel like relationships can often be a life lesson for us. Usually they say people are around for a lesson or a blessing, right? And so I think when we go into relationships, we all hope that person's going to be our soulmate and that we're going to be with forever. But this isn't necessarily the case. Sometimes I honestly feel like we get into relationships or even friendships because there is a lesson to learn there as to how you act the way you act and how the other person acts, and what we can learn from this situation. Often when we have a traumatic thing happen in the past, or whether we've been lied to or cheated on, if this hasn't been processed in the moment, if it just gets suppressed and ignored like it was nothing, this can often repeat itself until it is processed. So one of the reasons I feel like Angie has gone towards Carlin, even despite the rumors flying about his legitimacy and genuineness, I believe that maybe this is her life lesson of trust repeating itself over again. When she had to chat to Carlin about this in one of the episodes, she said, I can only go by what my instinct is saying. And my gut instinct is saying that it's all good, you know? Nothing wrong with following your gut instincts, but I do believe that when there's a life lesson to be learned, sometimes the universe throws us a bit of a curveball. And the people we are attracted to and the people we attract to us may be those people that teach us the lesson. And so if Carlin has a bit of this shady, questionable honesty thing going on that we're not quite sure of, and Angie has this life lesson of trust and intimacy and really getting close to another person by letting her walls down and not being heartbroken by that, they're almost like a perfect match energetically, and they are going to attract each other. Because if Carlin is going to break her heart down the track, that's the lesson repeating for her that she needs to learn. And considering we have seen a few rumors flying of Carlin being on Bachelor in Paradise, I wouldn't be surprised if a few months down the track we hear that it isn't meant to be. Which brings me back to Tim. So I feel like Tim was the kind of love that Angie deserves if he was any kind of archetype on the show. He was willing to do anything for her, put her completely first, be 100% there for her, literally felt like her soulmate. From the first episode, I kind of got the impression that like Tim had this bit of this bogan side, a bit of like rough around the edges thing going on, which you don't normally see on television. And I feel like Angie is a great match to that. She's also someone who presents quite well and looks amazing to be on TV, but actually deep down inside has that little bit of bogan in her, that little bit of rough around the edges, doesn't care what people think, you know, does her own thing, and, you know, she is who she is. And I think that matched quite well. But unfortunately in this scenario, there's always a choice. Do we need to relearn the lesson of trust again? And are we gonna believe Carlin when he says he's legitimate? Or are we gonna actually choose what's best for us? Even though it might seem a bit dull and a bit boring and a bit bland at times, and we might not be completely magnetically attracted to this person. Which ways are the chips going to fall? And that's ultimately up to Angie. But I guess I just wanted to make this video because I really feel like this just shows that sometimes we end up in the same patterns of relationships over and over and over again, where say we get cheated on over and over again, or people lie to us over and over again. And we kind of sit there and we're like, why? Why am I in this pattern again? How did this happen? It's like the same thing all over again's happened. Different person, different situation. I'm an older and wiser, and I thought I had it all under control, but it's popped back up again. And the reason for that is there's something left to learn. There's something the pain hasn't quite taught us yet. You might be someone who did get cheated on, and then you decided to be with someone who you could kind of like make sure they were home by a certain hour of the night and make sure they didn't have female friends anymore and things like that. But you're still trying to control the outcome of them cheating on you. And sometimes by even putting that extra pressure in, the person wants to rebel against that and feels like, you should just trust me. Why don't you trust me? And it causes its own issues. So I feel like it might be a bit of that in this situation. Angie might think she's been through it and she understands it and she's ready for love. But if there's more to it, she's going to keep hitting these barriers, and her intuition is going to keep guiding her towards these barriers and hurdles because there's more for her to learn here. And if she can't reach the love she deserves until she learns this lesson, it's going to continue. And if you do find yourself in that, that's not your fault. That's just the universe saying to you that there's a little bit more here we need to learn. There's something different that we missed the first time around. I hope you enjoyed this video. I wish all the best to Angie Kent in the future.